Greetings, dear phantoms, and welcome to Midnight Monster-Rama, where every night is Halloween. I'm your host, Nick.
And I'm Byron.
And
what a difference a year makes, huh? So 1988, you had Halloween 4 come out. Huge hit, triumphant return of Michael Myers. You had the same year, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. All of them very successful. Everything was going good for the slashers. 1989 gets here, something goes wrong. Suddenly it just feels a little oversaturated or something. Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, and Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. All of them are not very well liked by audiences and fans. They don't perform as well as their predecessors, and they kind of kill each of those franchises for at least a few years. That said, Nick!
We both know he's alive, but you know where he is.
Halloween 5, what'd you think?
well, I have to say, 1989, it was the year of Batman. I just had to throw that in there. Let's backtrack to when we watched Halloween 4, and everything I said about that movie that I disliked made much more sense in the fifth movie. They work together very nicely. It is by far one of my favorites alongside the first one. It had action, it had suspense, it had characters that you liked, it had characters that you disliked, which made it a lot more fun that way.
So to get the bad out of the way, Halloween 5 does take probably the most suspension of disbelief. Who's this old dude taking care of him for a year? Didn't he go check with police or something while he got this bloody shot up dude in his house? You gotta accept that the Myers house suddenly looks like this giant haunted mansion, that it's an idealized version of the Myers house.
And I was like, oh, that looks like the Voorhees house in Jason Goes to Hell, which, doesn't come until a couple years later, but it still reminded me of that.
I find it weird that the SWAT team is all over that Myers house and they don't notice the crazy room he set up for Jamie up in the attic.
Okay, do we look in the house? No, around it. Okay, we got this covered.
That leads me into what I love about Halloween 5. If Halloween 5 had a goblin score and a couple people's voices dubbed and you said it was Dario Argento's Halloween, people would love the hell out of this movie and
totally
worship it, because it is that kind of movie. Dominique Othenin-Girard, he had a great vision. It was an idealized version of the Myers house. It was a romanticized version of Michael Myers. Even in the commentary, he refers to him as the Beast.
He is kind of, I guess I could kind of see that.
The cinematography in Halloween 5, you have to love it. I respect that Part 4 took such a straightforward kind of James Cameron approach to it, but then Halloween 5 is almost like this weird, impressionistic, every kind of crazy idea that they can throw in to make the camera work more energetic or fun or stylized. They do it, and often to very good success. Those crazy POVs with Jamie when she's having her panic attack and they're taking her through and about to do a tracheotomy on her. Shit is awesome.
I have to say that first movie was frightening but fun. The fifth movie actually had me at the edge of my seat for a couple of moments, and especially involves Jamie. When she woke up from her nightmare and she's trying to scream but she can't. That's happened to me as a kid. It's incredibly scary. All the torment that she has to go through, and she's just brought into this world to be related to this maniac. It's kind of messed up, and I kind of wanted to see how she would be as an adult. But I don't think they really kind of captured that, have they?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Halloween 5 has a lot of strong characters too. Loomis probably gives the series best performance in this movie. It's an intense role, and he has to lose his mind in one section of the film, literally lose his mind. His speech about the rage,
Yes.
when he's looking out at the fog, that is amazing.
That's one of the best scenes, yeah. Donald Pleasance, he really brought out an element of Hammer horror film with his character. Like Van Helsing versus Dracula. No matter what you do to him, you stab him, you blow him up, you burn him, you throw him through a window, you still got this bald angry dude, not me by the way, you got this bald angry dude just trying to catch this guy and be like, 6 times!
Okay, I got a question for you.
Oh, please.
What did you think of Tina?
I love Tina.
She gets so much flack because of how bubbly and stuff she is, but I think that's what makes her real. She's probably the most real teenager in the history of slasher film.
Oh, absolutely. She's bubbly, she's lively, she's enigmatic, she has character. She's not like every other teenager that you see in the films. She's not ditzy. She's just flirty and fun. She looks like somebody that you can actually hang out with. A good portion of the best scenes all involved her, especially in the car, which, you know, much credit to Michael Myers. He gets a nicer car aside from the station wagon.
There's a couple of scenes like when she goes into Jamie's room and nobody's home and hugs the teddy bear and like cries a little bit. You can tell Tina probably has a very bad home life. Yeah. She's dating this kind of abusive dude. She's a trauma survivor, I think, and that's why she tries to not be sensible if she doesn't have to be, you know? Like,
right. You know, throughout the entire film, that's the only character that I was just like, I don't want to see anything bad happen to her. Aside from Jamie, of course.
And it was a little sad to see Rachel die so early, but
God dang it. It's like if there's any survivors from the last movie, one of them has got to go, if not all of them.
Favorite scenes?
One of the major important scenes to me in that film that really captured the terror and just the atmosphere. When Jamie woke up and she saw Myers outside, then all of a sudden the big chase scene happens, and pretty much most of it is done almost completely in one shot. It was just fluid in motion. Like, I could see where you got the Argento sort of feel to it. I like it because it also gives you like a sense of security when you find out the person who finds her isn't Michael, it's the nurse and the groundskeeper guy, and you just kind of feel that rush ebb away, but you know you've got to prepare yourself for the next thing because it's going to happen. Her acting is super good. Like, this little kid deserves like so much credit for her acting skills.
One of my favorite scenes is the barn sequence. The lighting is insane, for one thing. You know, they're just chasing these kittens around. You look up, Michael is there, and he's hidden by shafts of light, and you just see him back out of the...
And those cops that are just hanging around at the party.
They're a little silly in there. I think that's the French side of the Frenchman, putting that goofy comedy music.
Of course, yeah.
But again, it added to the way this movie feels different. Has its own identity. That's what I want from a sequel.
Oh, absolutely. That's not funny. You know, that was funny. Do you think that the goofy cops were kind of a nod to the movie The Last House on the Left with just how silly they were and everything?
It's interesting. Maybe it was still a nod to Last House on the Left to have some really ridiculous, inept cops. You know, we always get Sheriff Meeker and he's all on it and stuff.
Yeah.
Though they almost make all of that a little comical too. Now he's got the biggest police force Haddonfield has ever had, and they're exponentially more useless.
Well, it beats having a bunch of drunks in trucks, so yeah. You know. But maybe they were trying to capture the same comedy element that they did in Friday the 13th Part 6.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That's why I think what made that movie great was that it was very comic booky. And what made Part 5 great was that it was very comic booky. It's like looking into those old Harvey horror comic magazines. It's over the top, it's silly, but you still feel the frights, and it's there. And so before comic book movies came like super big and everything, well, that was the year of Batman, so I digress. It is kind of neat to see a horror element put in such a way as that. Whereas with like Nightmare on Elm Street, it was a little on the nose when they had the kid who was the comic book artist, but that was still one of my favorite scenes ever.
I love the finale through the giant house. I mean, that laundry chute sequence is one of the best things in any of the Halloween films.
Yeah, that got me good.
Crazy bold choice with the unmasking scene. The Michael, when he takes the mask off, he's not burned or anything. He looks like you or me. Underneath, the beast is us, and he even has a tear in his eye. Because they tie it all together that at the beginning, Jamie, we know from attacking her stepmother, Jamie almost becomes another iteration of the boogeyman. It's as if that force, when he was about to be destroyed, reached out and like grabbed onto her. And that's why at the beginning she's mute and she's trying to like fight to become herself again, right? She's trying to fight to not become a Michael Myers. And then you get it all that payoff when you see that tear in his eye that you realize somewhere deep inside that little boy was that too. that every worst beast and monster in the world underneath is just one of us. And that's freaking terrifying, and I love that they put that in there.
Let's talk about Billy, the best friend of Jamie. I think the kid is really sweet. It really brings that 80s flair of movies that I grew up watching. Crazy situation, the kids are in trouble, but they're smart enough to do what's right. And I think this kid kind of really knocked it out of the ballpark.
Yeah, I like their little adventures together.
It was just nice to see that she wasn't completely alone. And that's why I think breaks her apart from her uncle, Mike, because he was always alone in seclusion since he got arrested. She had this little faint reach of humanity with somebody that's her age going through the same problems.
What about the Man in Black?
It was like Creighton Duke, except the silent but deadly version. It was like, oh, this should be interesting. This guy should be really neat. Nope. You see, he has a matching tattoo that Mike has. Okay. Let's get a little backstory on the tattoo, on the marking. You see it on the walls. You see it in the halls. I didn't mean to make that rhyme.
Definitely not funny.
But yeah, I wanted to know more about that character, but he just kind of was in the wayside.
I'm 50-50 on the whole Man in Black thing. Like, I like the symbol on his wrist, especially I did when I was a kid. I was like, that's so cool. Ah. Yeah. I'm a little iffy on it now. I think all that stuff could totally not be in the film, though it did make for a good way to end it. Jamie going through the police station, bodies everywhere and blood, twisted bars on fire. That's a cool ending.
Maybe the guy in black is the dude who sold the little lament configurations in Hellraiser.
Totally is.
Throw in anybody to be the Man in Black. It could be the Candyman. It could be Beetlejuice. It could be Batman.
It could be the Predator.
It could be Chucky standing on top of another Chucky who's standing on top of another Chucky.
It could be Dolph Lundgren from Masters of the Universe.
It could be Dolph Lundgren from The Punisher.
It could be Dolph Lundgren from I Come in Peace. Or maybe it's that weird monster from Split Second with Rutger Hauer. I think it's the Rutger Hauer monster, probably. Because that monster did use the zodiac signs, which aren't exactly rune symbols, but still.
Darth Vader. Because I remember we were discussing that while we were watching the film. I'm like, okay, is that supposed to be Myers' dad in Friday the 13th Part 6? They were going to have Jason's dad in the movie and, you know, kind of leave it a little more open-ended into interpretation, which would have been fine too. So seeing that I'm always changing the score on the movies and everything, I have to give 4 a little bit more credit for this movie because this definitely turned something where you're just kind of wondering what it's going to be exactly into a fun Monster Mash kind of horror haunted house of fun. So I give this one a 10 out of 10. I don't know what everybody in 1989 was thinking. I sure as hell don't. I was only like 7 or 8 years old, and all I wanted to see was Batman and Beetlejuice.
Halloween 5, I would give a 9 out of 10. I'll take it down a point because there are some crazy leaps and logics in there. This is my favorite sequel. Insanely fun, endlessly entertaining, and if you don't like it, I could understand that. I mean, especially coming off such a literal sequel as Halloween 4 is. But I would challenge you to maybe watch it again and think of it as that kind of mid-80s crazy Italian horror film. Something like Demons, Phenomena, Stage Fright, something in that kind of realm, but with Michael Myers. I mean, that is awesome, and it exists. Well, Phantoms, that about wraps up this week. Tune in next time for Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. Nick, place your bets now. Is Loomis alive in this one? Well, all right, Phantoms, that wraps up this week. Make sure if you really like this, give us a like. If you really, really like us, subscribe. We'd really appreciate that. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to see when the next episode is available.
That sounded like Boris. I hope he's okay.